Welcome to another episode of Gospel Entrepreneurs in partnership with UCB. And I'm thrilled today to have Dan Water, who used to be with Unilever, actually was pushed by the company to discover God's calling on his life. Now he's stepping into a bi-vocational role with a vineyard church, as well as setting up his business at the same time. Sit back and listen to Dan as we share together in this episode of Gospel Entrepreneurs. So welcome, Dan.
Thank you. Thanks, Roy. Nice to see you.
Give us a little bit of where you're living and your family so that we know who we're listening to.
So we live in Northampton. My wife and I actually grew up in Northampton and around. We went away for a time and then gravitated back to Northampton. So we've been here around 17 years, been married for 20, and I've got a son and a daughter.
And you were part of a vineyard church there, weren't you?
Yeah, so we joined Central Vineyard in 2017. We felt called to Northampton back in 2009. So we've been around the town centre since then, and then joined Central Vineyard in 2017.
And it's quite a significant church, isn't it? It's got staff, it's got compassion ministries. I don't know, is it 500 or 600 people? Is that the kind of church that we're talking about?
It's around 200 people.
Okay.
We've got, the building is buzzing most days of the week. We've got lots going on. It did grow before COVID. We had multiple services. But then after COVID, I guess not only because of COVID, but also there's been other church plants around Northamptonshire and Milton Keynes. And we're probably around 200 at the moment. We're just adopting another church as another site as well. So we're growing in different ways. And really seeking to see what God wants to build on what's happened before. The great stuff that's gone on in Central Vineyard and around the Vineyard Church and church planting before. So yeah, it's exciting.
And you used to be full-time with Unilever. What was your role there?
Yeah, so I was with Unilever for quite a while, for about almost 17 years. I joined them around about 2007, 2008. I'm a project manager at heart. I love a project. So I got the foot in the door, and really I wanted to become a project manager. So I became a project manager within their R&D, mainly around beverages. So Lipton tea, PG Tips in the UK, Lions in Ireland. And then Unilever sold off the tea business about 3 years ago to a private equity firm, became Lipton Teas and Infusions. I actually stayed with them for that time. And I was a senior program manager. So our strategic projects, I was leading globally, connecting all across the globe and working very closely with those tea experts, making sure we had a brilliant product. But it was my job to make things happen and roll new great products out in our kind of global strategic projects, which was really great fun. And I loved it.
So you're in the corporate, leadership in the church. Give me how you now shifted to where you are.
It's been quite a journey, and actually reflecting back, especially on the last 17 years, God keeps reminding us of things that he told us 17 years ago that he's faithfully given us. Because we went traveling for a while. We visited a lot of missionaries we knew. We went to Pakistan and Kyrgyzstan, spent a bit of time in Dubai, and went down to Kenya as well. And we absolutely loved it. We felt that God was saying to us, like, come back to the UK and have the experience we had when we were traveling, which was to slow down and see God in things. So we came back very eagerly to the UK. And then obviously we hit the real world. My wife's a teacher. She was found a job. I was looking for a job really around project management, but we really felt called to Northampton. And it went quiet for a few years, if I'm honest. We'd had our kids and we whilst we felt the call to Northampton and to be able to slow down and meet people where they're at, see God in things, around 2017, we were like, okay, God, where do you want us? And that's when we actually walked through the door of Central Vineyard. I learned lots within my corporate journey. I loved having a team. I loved developing teams. I love helping people to grow and develop themselves. And that combined with coming onto the leadership team in 2022, we were saying, okay, God, this is the next thing in the journey. You said those things 17 years before. Okay, we get it. This is the next big step forward.
Often we think when God speaks, it's kind of, well, I'm just going to walk back into it. But 17 years on, and then you're walking into it, is kind of interesting, Dan.
Oh, hugely. And there was still a passion for us for Northampton. There was still a passion that we were here for a reason, but we'd forgot a lot of those things, if I'm totally honest, and until God started nudging us forward again in a proactive way. And of course, those kind of words that he'd given us and the things he'd led us in suddenly started coming back and giving us, by his spirit, confidence to step into whatever next. And we didn't really know what the next thing was, to be honest. I was doing a full-time job and doing our church leadership on top of that. Wasn't a great balance, to be honest, but we were trying to discern that calling from God in a more sure way, step by step.
And now you then made a decision to say, I'm going to do this bi-vocational piece, whereby I'm going to step out of Unilever and I'm going to be the church leader, so the senior pastor, but I'm also going to keep that other vocation, which is pretty unique, isn't it, to hold and embrace both as an entrepreneur?
Yes, for sure. So whether it was God's leading or God saying, Dan, we need to move this forward now, my company decided to relocate everyone to Amsterdam. It was announced November 2023. And then I had basically 8 or 9 months to work out what was next. Now, the great thing was, in a room full of anxiety and fear, when that announcement came of moving from Bedfordshire to Amsterdam, I actually felt relief because this was the next thing in the journey God had for us. But then there was, okay, so what next? What did it look like? We were already starting to think church leadership is a part of that. We'd been doing it for a couple of years. So my wife and I were part of that leadership team and we lead the church together. She's also a primary school teacher, so it's bi-vocational for her as well. But I really felt actually the last 17 years was there for a reason. And ironically, at the end, I felt I was thriving in that environment. I kind of evaluated over Christmas where my passions are, where my gifts are. Plan A was really to reduce my hours at Lipton Tea and then step more into church. There was never a good time to say that because the highs and lows of a company acquisition, my boss would never have agreed to that. And now I had a blank page that God had given me to kind of start again. So decided to work for church 2 days a week and start my own leadership coaching business for the other 3 days.
Which is a big step. And what are you 40? Is that right? Somewhere in there?
Yeah, 43. Yeah.
So it's a big change. You got family, but you're kind of saying that bivocational piece, I think as a church leader, do you really see added value in that as leading the church and living in that space for your people?
Hugely. And probably 2 parts to that. For myself individually, but also for the church. So for myself individually, I really feel that God has called me, as I said before, to slow down, walk with people and see his leading and guiding of the people that I walk with. And I really felt I can do that in a church capacity, and I also can do that in a business type leadership capacity. And as I said, I've got a passion for the church, for the kingdom of God, for God to build his kingdom in Northampton. And I've also got a passion for business and entrepreneurship, and to walk with people that have been in the place I've been through. We went through loads of hurdles in the last few years as a team in Lipton. And actually we came out really resilient and confident and energized despite all of those things going on. So I wanted to be a part of both, to be honest. But also, over the last 2 or 3 years, I've been talking to others who are bivocational, especially in church leadership. And one vineyard pastor did give me some really great direction of, well, actually, it's God's church, it's God's body, it's him that equips. And actually, sometimes not to be around, full time gives opportunities for other people to step into it. And that's almost part of my DNA as well. I love seeing people thrive. So it works both ways.
And being senior pastor, are you quite disciplined? We'll talk about the business you're doing, which is kind of connected anyway, because it's coaching and leadership development and all of that, which is what you do naturally anyway as a pastor, as a local church. But do you see a conflict in days, or are you quite disciplined, or how does that work out? Because I know Vineyard are looking at this as a strategy going forward, and other churches, because as finances get affected, even in the Church of England, there's a whole strategy thinking around bivocational leaders and strategies. And the entrepreneur thrives in that, because we tend to like to do different things in doing what we do.
Yeah, I like to think I am, but it probably depends on the week, to be honest, Roy. With any role or responsibility, the workload fluctuates, of course. So there's some weeks that are very intense church-wise. There's some weeks that are very intense coaching-wise. And I think actually my corporate background has helped me to put discipline and the boundaries in place. Especially after COVID, things changed a lot. And I personally felt that I needed to draw the boundaries. So I do try and structure myself to work Mondays and Tuesdays for church, and Wednesdays to Friday developing my coaching business. Of course, there can be flexibilities within that, but I try and keep it tight and honour what I'm doing in both.
Because obviously you have a staff team as well that are full-time.
Yeah.
They're not bivocational. And so that, again, must be a bit of a challenge in that context as well.
Yeah. Well, actually, we've built a culture of bivocational within the church team, which actually makes things a lot easier in that way. My wife works for church on a Tuesday, and then Wednesday afternoon to Friday, she's at school teaching.
Yeah.
We've got somebody who also owns his own business and gives church hours. We've got some on secondment to Vineyard Global. We've got some that kind of support the family of churches we're in, some that have gone into schools previously as well. So actually, there's a nice culture.
Wow.
Of actually, my church role isn't the be-all and end-all. God sends us out and wants us to be part of his kingdom in those pockets of spaces he's put us in. So I would say it's actually evolved over the last few years, which helps me, and I hope it helps the whole team.
Yeah, I'm sure it does. And I think the other thing it does is that when you're communicating to your congregation or preaching on a Sunday, you're in their space that they live in. So your teaching and the way you interpret must be different. Hey, nothing against the full-time. We're not negative on that. But it just gives a different way of talking and presenting, doesn't it?
Oh, for sure. There's probably pros and cons with each way, but personally, I'm continually preaching to myself in the world because I know the struggles that I've personally gone through, and also speaking to people that are going through the same. So yeah, definitely helps, I think.
And talk to me about your business then. What is that? And I know that's just kind of starting as well.
Yeah, so my background is really R&D and technical. I'm good on all of that stuff, but it's definitely brought to the surface, as a founder of a new business, there's lots of things that I'm learning at the moment. So the business is Bemuse Coaching. The name Bemuse actually came 17 years ago as well. And it was all around finding ourselves, finding our own muse in where God has called us, where our passions are, where our gifts are, etc. I won't go through what the original idea was, but the principle was the same: slowing down and help people grow. So Bemuse Coaching, I've spent the last 6 months training. I was fortunate enough to get a retraining budget as part of my redundancy. I'm a trained NLP practitioner, which really helps on the coaching side. And the first 6 months, as well as training, has been, what do I really want to offer and help people with? And actually, it's only really taken more specific shape in the last 2 or 3 weeks. So I'm focusing on leadership development, leaders who are overwhelmed, stressed, feel that there's very little mind space to be able to think things through, to impact things. And really what I offer in leadership coaching is a space to step away, look at all the tools God has given people, their gifts, their passions, their callings, and then find that sweet spot in how do I help them to develop.
Yeah.
Now, there's a development piece, but there's also how do we show up at our best in those kind of key moments, especially those difficult moments where we can make the most impact. There's a big picture, calling, purpose, what's the direction, but there's also a more, okay, in the next few weeks, what are those moments you want to turn up at your best? And I've both experienced all of this in the corporate world, but also my training has given me the tools to help people turn up at their best, at their most confident, keeping those self-doubts at bay, those voices in our heads that we all have, and turn up really confidently and clearly as well of what we want out of those big opportunities. So that's what I'm focusing on. And now my focus is on finding those people and building my client base and building the business.
And amazingly, I mean, you use a lot of God language, but you're not working in the God space.
No.
But you're recognizing that within these people, God has planted certain abilities that you're drawing out, which is a great ability to release and free. And I just think it's a privilege to speak into people's lives and then to see them develop, and alongside that, their own significance and success, because the two tend to go hand in hand as you work together. So you've stepped out, you've taken the risk, you've been very entrepreneurial. You must be full of faith at some times and full of fear at other times. But somebody's listening to this and they're thinking, well, you've done it, you've set up Bemuse, you actually had it 17 years ago, now you're delivering it. What would you say to them? You've taken the step. Now, it's kind of a step, but you do have income for those other spaces, and you had the income that the company gave you. So you're still in that safe space, let's say.
Yeah.
But you've gone for it and you've done it because you felt God was wanting you. What would you say to people listening to this podcast today as we kind of come to a conclude? What would you say to them that are thinking, I've got this idea? First of all, do you wait 17 years? That's a bit of a long time. Some people listening to this, they're only 17 anyway. So they're thinking, wow.
So the key thing for me, and actually it was some advice that was given to me as I was starting to think about coaching, was most of all, where does God want you? What are you called to? And actually, we need that within us when the hard times come. And it's still my continuous prayer to God is as I press into it more, is this the space that you've called me to? I think journaling has really helped me, actually. I learned that because I started to forget those things that he'd said before. just hearing his voice in it all, I think is most important, because the doubts come and the challenges come and the barriers come. And actually knowing that I'm in the right place has been huge for me. I've been in that nice, safe space of the corporate world for all those years. And then suddenly, well, all of it depends on me in terms of my business. So my advice would be to really press into what God's called you to, keep testing that, keep listening to his voice, and then practically prepare for it. Surround yourself with people who know what you're getting into, know the challenges, are able to advise. And of course, gospel entrepreneurs offer that as well. And so it's that kind of balance of stepping forward in faith and also stepping forward with the tools, resources, and the relationships that help you along the way. Because it can feel lonely at times. So that is really, really important.
And it's really interesting, is it? Because when you were Unilever, you ring up and you say, I'm with Unilever, I'm an R&R, and all of a sudden, that opens a door. Now you ring up and you say, I'm Dan from, and they're like, who and what? Yeah. And you think, well, I did all of this, that, but you come off the credibility of that.
Yeah.
But now, because you've stepped out, it's like, it's me. I am the credibility. And I think when you're at the stage you're at, it takes a while for that to happen. And that's where you really need the confidence in God has spoken and people around you that say, keep going, don't quit. And that's a very different space to be in, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And I was on the other side within Unilever. I was calling people like me and asking what they offer. And people like me, coaches and consultants, were calling me saying, are you interested in this?
Yeah.
So now I'm seeing things from the other side, which is very different, hugely different, and learning those skills and kind of conversational, negotiating, things like that in the way that's comfortable for me, and also stretching myself at times to learn how to do it more.
And I think it's great that you've done it. I think it's exciting. I think it is a model that we could look at going forward. And we want significance and success for you and what you're into and what you're doing. And surely knowing that you were on the other end of that call changes the way you speak when you're in that space to those companies and those groups. It must do.
Yeah, and by design, I'm looking to work with people who are stressed and overwhelmed in that space as well. And so the right sensitivity, but the right time to show up confidently is something that's evolving in how I do things, and I'm learning along the way. And of course, everyone's an individual, so we've all got our best ways of connecting and communicating within that as well. So flexibility is actually a huge thing, I think.
And you're into a space where a lot of people do it. So you're also thinking, what's my niche that I bring that God's given me, which is great.
Yeah.
Any last thing that you'd love to say to people that are listening, that as we come into land, hey, I'd love you to hear this from this conversation out of everything as a takeaway?
My heart is to see people thrive in what they're called to, what's been laid on their heart, what their dreams are, and passions and gifts within all of that. I would just say, pray confidently into it. Ask God for the skills, the tools, the experiences, and the opportunities to take it forward. Sometimes that's a baby step at a time, and sometimes he wants you to make that big jump, but knowing him in that, and also walking alongside other Christians, other people that want to see God's kingdom flourish in all the spaces he's put us. And it's an exciting space. It's an energizing space. Of course, it's challenging, but it's also a really exciting space to be in.
And I think it's also intentionality, isn't it? I need to connect myself to certain people that that are going to help me, that I'm going to help them. I need to connect myself, because often you can sit in your room at home and think, why is the phone not ringing? Well, actually, proactive intentionality, God also intervenes in, which is the gathering of entrepreneurs that we do. But those things are real openers for learning and connecting. And because the amazing thing about the body of Christ is these people have been there. They understand it. There's so much wisdom in there that we can glean.
Oh, definitely. And kind of the breadth of experience, but also expertise in the network around gospel entrepreneurs is really helpful to not only support, but also inspire of what God can do.
Great. Dan, it's been amazing to talk to you. I almost feel like 18 months from now, we should have you back on and just see where it's come to in the business, but also the church. Because I think that is something that's going to happen more and more in our culture and our context at this moment in time.
Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah.
Thanks for coming on. That's it. Another episode of Gospel Entrepreneurs. Thanks for joining us. And the takeaway from Dan is obviously you could take the step, but it could be enforced upon you. But never forget what God has dropped into your heart. Maybe 5 years ago, 10 or even 17 years ago. And then when you step into it, God reminds you, oh, this is where it's now working out. And recognize the long haul, the long picture that God has on our lives. So thanks for listening. This has been a Gospel Entrepreneurs and UCB podcast. God bless you.